Your 20s are basically financial quicksand. You're standing there, watching everyone around you buy expensive cars they can't afford, taking out student loans for degrees that might land them a job at Starbucks, and somehow convincing themselves that avocado toast is a reasonable breakfast expense. Meanwhile, you're probably wondering if you should be doing something different with your money, or if you're destined to join the ranks of people who complain about being broke while simultaneously ordering DoorDash 3 times a week. Here is something that might shock you. Purchases you make in your 20s will determine whether you spend your 30s building wealth or still living paycheck to paycheck like some sort of financial Groundhog Day. Most people get this completely backwards. They think their 20s are for spending money on experiences and stuff, and their 30s are for getting serious about money. That is like saying you'll start training for a marathon the day before the race. It doesn't work. My name is Nick, and I've spent way too much time analyzing why some people escape the financial hamster wheel while others run on it their entire lives. If you're tired of watching your bank account hover around the same depressing number month after month, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, because today we're going to talk about 7 purchases that can literally change the trajectory of your entire financial future. These aren't the typical stop buying coffee type of tips. These are strategic investments that compound over decades, and the difference between making them in your 20s versus your 30s could literally be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, before we dive into these 7 game-changing purchases, let me be crystal clear about something. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice. These are lessons I've learned from watching people succeed and fail with money, including my own experiences of making both smart moves and spectacularly dumb ones. What I'm sharing with you today are the purchases that consistently show up in the lives of people who achieve financial independence while they're still young enough to enjoy it. The reality is, most people approach their 20s completely backwards. They think this is the time to live it up, spend everything they earn, and worry about money later. But here is what they don't understand about compound interest. Compound interest is basically the closest thing we have to magic in the financial world. It is when your money makes money, and then that money makes more money, and it keeps snowballing bigger and bigger over time. The key ingredient that makes this magic work is time. The longer your money has to grow, the more powerful the effect becomes. This is why your 20s matter so much. Let me show you what I mean with a quick example. If you invest $100 at age 25 and it grows at 8% per year, by the time you are 65, that $100 becomes over $2,000. That is your money multiplying by 20 times. But if you wait until you are 35 to invest that same $100, it only grows to about $1,000 by age 65. Waiting 10 years cut your returns in half. That is the real cost of thinking you'll deal with money later. Every year you delay means permanently losing compound growth that you can never get back. The people who understand this know that your 20s are actually when small, smart decisions create massive results down the road. $100 invested wisely at 25 becomes thousands at 50. $100 spent on something that depreciates, like clothes or electronics or a fancy dinner, becomes nothing but a faded memory and maybe some debt. This is the fundamental difference between people who build wealth and people who wonder where all their money went. So, let's start with purchase number 1. And this might surprise you because it is not something you buy once and forget about. It is an investment in a side hustle. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nick, a side hustle isn't really a purchase. But hear me out, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think side hustles are free, something you just start doing in your spare time without any investment. But the most successful side hustles almost always require some upfront investment to get started properly, whether it is buying equipment for photography, investing in a website, domain, and hosting for an online business, purchasing tools for a service business, or even just buying books and courses to learn a valuable skill. Starting a side hustle properly means putting some money down first. And in your 20s, this might be the single best investment you can make because it has the potential to completely change your financial trajectory faster than anything else on this list. Think about it this way. When you invest in stocks, you might make 8 to 10% annually. If you're lucky, that is great for long-term wealth building, but it is not going to change your life in the short term. But a side hustle has unlimited upside potential. You could invest $500 in some basic equipment or education, and within a year be making an extra $1,000 or $2,000 per month. That is not an 8% return. That is like a 500% return in year one, and it keeps paying you month after month. The beautiful thing about side hustles in your 20s is that you probably don't have a mortgage, kids, or other financial obligations weighing you down. You can take risks and try things that might not work out. If you fail, you can bounce back quickly because your lifestyle expenses are probably relatively low. But if you succeed, you might never have to worry about money. Some people turn side hustles into full-time businesses that replace their day job income. Others just use the extra cash to supercharge their investment and retire years earlier than they otherwise could. Here is what most people miss about side hustles, though. They try to start something completely outside their wheelhouse instead of building on their existing strengths. If you're naturally good with cars, start there. Maybe you buy some detailing equipment and start a mobile car detailing service on weekends. If you understand websites and technology, build something in that space. Maybe you learn WordPress and start helping small businesses build their web presence. If you can take decent photos, explore photography services, weddings, real estate photos, product photography. These are all viable options. The point isn't to chase whatever seems most profitable online or copy some influencer. The point is to find something that matches your skills and interests, then invest what it takes to do it properly. That might be $300 for a decent camera and some lighting. It might be $50 for a website domain and hosting. It might be $200 for a course that teaches a skill. Whatever it is, treat it as an investment, not an expense. You're buying yourself a potential income stream for years. Now, let's talk about purchase number 2, and this is where the real magic of compound interest starts to work in your favor. Investing in index funds, specifically through a Roth IRA or similar tax advantaged account. This is where your 20s give you the ultimate unfair advantage, and that advantage is time. Let me show you some math that might blow your mind. If you invest just $200 per month into an S&P 500 index fund, starting at age 22, and that investment grows at the historical average of about 10% annually, you'll have over $1 million by the time you are 67. Let me repeat that because it is important. $200 a month for 45 years equals over $1 million. That is less than $7 a day. That is one fancy coffee and a bagel. Skip those. Invest the money instead, and you become a millionaire. But here is the kicker, and this is where the time advantage really shows its power. If you wait until you are 32 to start that same investment plan, investing the same $200 per month at the same 10% return, you'll end up with about $700,000 instead of $1 million. Waiting just 10 years cost you $300,000 in the long run. That is $300,000 you'll never get back, no matter how hard you work or how much you save later. This is why your 20s matter so much for building wealth. Those early years of compound growth are the most valuable because they compound the longest. The beauty of index funds is that they're basically the boring, reliable friend of the investment world. They don't promise to make you rich overnight, and they won't give you exciting stories to tell at parties, but they consistently outperform most actively managed funds over long periods. An index fund is basically just a basket that holds hundreds of different company stocks. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, you are buying tiny pieces of 500 of the biggest companies in America. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all of them in one simple investment. This gives you automatic diversification, which is just a fancy way of saying you're spreading your risk. Instead of betting everything on one company that might fail, you're betting on the entire American economy. Some companies will do great, some will do poorly, but overall, the trend has been up for decades. And because index funds are passively managed, meaning they just track the market instead of trying to beat it, they have incredibly low fees. Most charge less than 0.1% per year compared to actively managed funds that might charge 1% or more. That fee difference might not sound like much, but over 40 years, a 1% fee versus a 0.1% fee could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost returns. It is like having a slow leak in your financial bucket. You don't notice it day to day, but over time, it drains a massive amount of wealth. And if you do this through a Roth IRA, your gains grow completely tax-free. Here is how that works. With a Roth IRA, you contribute money you've already paid taxes on. It grows inside the account, and when you retire and start taking the money out, you pay zero taxes on the gains. Zero. Every dollar of growth stays in your pocket instead of going to Uncle Sam. Compare that to a regular investment account, where you have to pay capital gains taxes every time you sell for a profit, and the Roth IRA advantage becomes huge. Let's put some numbers on this. Say you invest $200 a month from age 25 to 65, and your account grows to $1.2 million. In a Roth IRA, that is $1.2 million you get to keep. In a regular taxable account, you might owe $300,000 or more in taxes when you eventually sell. That is a massive difference. The key to making this work is automation. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your Roth IRA every month, right after you get paid. If you never see the money in your checking account, you won't spend it. It becomes like a subscription service for your future self. You're subscribing to becoming a millionaire, $200 at a time. This approach also removes emotion from investing, which is crucial because emotions are usually the enemy of good investment decisions. When the stock market drops and everyone's panicking, your automatic investment keeps buying shares at lower prices, which means you'll make even more when the market recovers. When the market's soaring and everyone's getting greedy, your automatic investment keeps you disciplined. Instead of throwing extra money in at the peak right before a crash, it is like having a backup plan that runs quietly in the background while you focus on other things. You go to work, build your career, maybe work on your side hustle, and meanwhile, this investment account is growing month after month, year after year, compounding away until one day you wake up and realize you're actually wealthy. Purchase number 3 is something that might seem frivolous, especially in a video about building wealth, but can actually be one of the smartest investments you make in your 20s. Buy a plane ticket, travel while you're young, but do it strategically. Now, before you think I'm contradicting everything I just said about saving and investing, let me be clear. This isn't about blowing your savings on expensive vacations to look cool on social media. This isn't about staying in 5-star hotels or eating at Michelin star restaurants. This is about investing in experiences and connections that can change your perspective and open doors you didn't even know existed. Traveling in your 20s builds confidence in ways that nothing else can. When you figure out how to navigate a foreign city where you don't speak the language, when you solve problems in unfamiliar environments, when you learn to communicate despite language barriers, you develop a kind of self-reliance and adaptability that serves you for the rest of your life. These are skills that make you better at business, better at relationships, better at handling whatever life throws at you. You also meet people from different backgrounds, different industries, different ways of thinking. Some of these people might become lifelong friends. Some might become business partners. Some might just plant seeds of ideas that change how you think about your career or your life. You never know which conversation or connection will matter until years later when you realize how much impact it had. Think about it like this. Every person you meet knows things you don't know. They have skills, knowledge, connections, opportunities that are completely invisible to you until you meet them. When you travel, you massively expand the number of people in your network, and you never know which of those connections will turn out to be valuable down the road. Maybe you meet someone who later offers you a job opportunity. Maybe you meet someone who becomes a client for your side hustle. Maybe you just learn about an industry or career path you never knew existed. But here is the key to making travel work as an investment instead of just an expense. Do it strategically using credit card points and rewards programs. This is one of the smartest financial hacks that most people in their 20s completely ignore. Here is how it works. Get a travel rewards credit card. There are dozens of options, but look for one with a big sign-up bonus, no annual fee for the first year, and good points earning on categories you already spend money on. Use that card for your normal expenses, things you'd buy anyway, like groceries, gas, bills, whatever. Then pay it off in full every single month. Never carry a balance. This is crucial. If you carry a balance and pay interest, you've completely defeated the purpose, because credit card interest rates are insane, usually 20% or more. But if you pay it off every month, you're essentially getting free money in the form of points that you can redeem for travel. Some cards give you 50,000 or 100,000 bonus points just for signing up and spending a certain amount in the first few months. That is often enough for a free round trip flight to Europe or Asia. Then you keep earning points on every purchase. Those points stack up faster than you'd think. This strategy also helps you build a strong credit score, which becomes incredibly valuable when you're ready to buy a house or invest in real estate. Credit card companies report your payment history to the credit bureaus. If you're consistently paying off your balance every month, that shows up as responsible credit management, and your credit score goes up. A good credit score can save you tens of thousands of dollars in lower interest rates when you eventually get a mortgage, which we'll talk about more in a minute. The bottom line on travel is this: don't waste your 20s sitting in the same city, hanging out with the same people, never expanding your worldview. That is how you end up stuck in a box, thinking the only way to live or work or build a career is the way everyone around you does it. But also, don't blow all your money on expensive trips that leave you broke. Use the point strategy to travel smart. Build experiences and connections that compound in value over time and come back with perspectives that make you more valuable in the marketplace. That brings us to about halfway through our 7 purchases. And I want to pause here for a second, because I know some of you might be thinking, Nick, this all sounds great, but I can barely afford my rent, let alone invest in side hustles and retirement accounts and travel. I get it, but here is the thing. The reason you can barely afford your rent is probably because of decisions you're making with money right now. And those decisions are exactly what the rest of these purchases are designed to address. The people who build wealth in their 20s don't necessarily make more money than everyone else. At least, not at first. They just make smarter decisions about where their money goes. They invest in things that appreciate in value instead of things that depreciate. They build income streams instead of just spending their paycheck. They think long-term instead of optimizing for short-term gratification. That is the difference. And it is what we're going to keep exploring with the next 4 purchases. Purchase number 4 is investing in education, but not the kind that puts you $100,000 in debt for a degree that might not even help you get a job. I'm talking about books, online courses, workshops, and any other learning that increases your skills and makes you more valuable in the marketplace. This is honestly one of the most powerful investments you can make, because the knowledge you gain compounds for decades. Think about it. A $20 book can completely change your mindset about money and success. A few $100s spent on a legitimate course can teach you skills that increase your income by thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars per year. That return on investment is insane compared to almost anything else you could buy. The key word here is legitimate. You need to avoid those $997 courses from people posing next to rented Lamborghinis, promising to teach you their secret system for making millions. Those are almost always scams. Instead, focus on learning from people who have actually built successful businesses or careers in areas you're interested in. Look for courses with real reviews from real people who got real results. Your brain is most adaptable in your 20s, which means you can learn new skills faster now than you'll ever be able to again. Take advantage of that. Whether it is learning to code, understanding digital marketing, developing sales skills, or mastering a trade like plumbing or electrical work, every skill you acquire becomes part of your arsenal for the rest of your life. It is like collecting tools. The more tools you have, the more problems you can solve, and the more value you can provide to the marketplace. Purchase number 5 is the big one that scares most people in their 20s, but can absolutely transform your financial future. Buy real estate. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nick, I can barely afford ramen noodles, let alone a house. But hear me out, because there are creative ways to make this work even if you're not rolling in cash. Real estate accelerates wealth building through three main mechanisms. First, properties generally appreciate in value over time. Not always, and not in every market, but historically, real estate values trend upward. Second, if you rent part of the property out, you get income that helps pay your mortgage. Third, you're using leverage, meaning you control a valuable asset with a relatively small down payment, and other people are essentially paying for your investment through their rent payments. Let me give you a concrete example. Say you buy a duplex for $300,000 with a 3.5% down payment, which is about $10,000. You live in one unit and rent out the other for $1,500 per month. Your mortgage payment might be $1,800 per month, but the tenant's rent covers $1,500 of that, so you are only paying $300 out of pocket. Meanwhile, you're building equity as you pay down the mortgage, and the property might appreciate 3 to 5% per year. After 5 years, you could easily have $50,000 to $80,000 in equity just from appreciation and principal paydown. This is called house hacking, and it is one of the fastest ways to build wealth in your 20s. You could also buy a single family home and rent out rooms to roommates, or explore short-term rentals through Airbnb if your local market supports it. The goal is to let other people pay your mortgage while you build equity and benefit from appreciation. It is not always easy, and it definitely requires more hands on management than index fund investing, but the wealth building potential is enormous. Purchase number 6 might sound boring, but it is actually one of the most important financial decisions you'll make in your 20s. Buy cheap, reliable transportation. Notice I didn't say buy a car. I said buy transportation. There is a massive difference, and understanding this difference could save you literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Most people in their 20s think they need a nice car to look successful. They finance $30,000 vehicles they can afford, making $500 payments that eat up a huge chunk of their income for 6 or 7 years. Meanwhile, that same money could be growing in investments, compounding into serious wealth. Here is the brutal truth. A $500 car payment invested at 8% returns for 30 years becomes over $600,000. That is not a typo. That is the real cost of having a car payment. Not just the $500 a month you are paying, but the $600,000 you did to invest. Cars are not investments. They're depreciating liabilities that cost you money every month. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses thousands in value. It is like lighting money on fire, except you still have to make payments. Instead, buy a 3 to 5 year old Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, or something similarly reliable for $10,000 to $15,000. Pay cash if you can. These cars will run for 200,000 miles if you maintain them, and they're cheap to insure and repair. Purchase number 7 is investing in your health, and this one gets overlooked constantly because the benefits aren't immediately obvious, but your health determines everything else. How hard you can work, how long you can pursue your goals, how much energy you have for your side hustle, whether you'll actually be around to enjoy the wealth you're building. I'm not talking about expensive gym memberships or personal trainers. I'm talking about the basics most people in their 20s ignore because they think they're invincible. Good food instead of energy drinks and fast food, regular sleep instead of pulling all-nighters, some form of exercise that doesn't involve walking from your couch to the fridge. Your 20s are when you establish habits that will either support your goals or sabotage them for decades. If you're constantly exhausted or dealing with preventable health problems, it doesn't matter how smart your investment strategy is. You won't have the energy to execute it. Better sleep means better decisions. Better nutrition means consistent energy. Regular exercise means stress management and mental clarity. These aren't luxuries. They're fundamental requirements for building wealth. Here is what ties all 7 of these purchases together. They're all about playing the long game instead of optimizing for short-term gratification. While everyone else is focused on looking successful right now, you're focused on actually becoming successful over time. Every good decision compounds. Every side hustle skill makes you more valuable. Every dollar invested grows exponentially. Every relationship from travel opens doors later. Every month without car payments frees up capital for wealth building. Your 20s will pass by, whether you make smart financial decisions or not. The only question is whether you look back at 30 wondering where your money went, or sitting on a foundation that gives you actual choices about how to spend your life. These 7 purchases aren't just about building wealth. They're about building freedom. The freedom to wake up and decide what you want to do with your day instead of what you have to do to pay bills. Start with one purchase today. Maybe it is opening a Roth IRA and setting up that automatic $200 monthly transfer. Maybe it is buying a $20 book about a skill you want to learn. Maybe it is selling your expensive car and buying something reliable instead. Whatever it is, take action, because 10 years from now, you'll either thank yourself or wish you had. If this video helped you think differently about money, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which of these 7 purchases you're going to prioritize first. And if you want to dive deeper into building wealth in your 20s, check out the video I'll link in the description about automating your finances. Until next time, make smart choices, and I'll see you in the next one.